protection, more antibodies than those who did not have that third dose. But over the age of 18, you can definitely get one as well. First of all, vaccines save lives, and I am so excited, and I thank and I commend Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg for taking action, because this affects everyone. This affects our children. It affects adults. And I thank and I commend Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg for taking action. And I thank and I commend Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg for taking action.
Do you take care of your immune system in other ways? Do you take probiotics? Are you cautious about your diet?
I'm not as cautious about my diet as I should be. I'm a junk foodaholic.
Pam Bondi, Attorney General of Florida, and we've been rewriting it, and we are going to bring in something called the Gun Violence Restraining Order. So if someone is civilly committed, typically you can hold them for up to 72 hours, but people are getting out within 24 hours, the majority of them. So what we want to do is let law enforcement come in and take the guns.
Good.
They're a danger to themselves
Which you can't do
others.
right now.
Well, because without being adjudicated.
And I thank and I commend Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg for taking action.
What's going on, everybody? So today, a lot of people have been demanding or asking for a report on Trump's new Surgeon General, as well as some of his other picks. So I'm going to talk about that today. And I just want to let people know it's not going to be all negative. I need to do this reporting. I think it's really important. And then at the end, I'm going to be a little more positive and talk about some good things as well. It's not going to be all negative or anything, but we do have to talk about his Surgeon General pick. I think her name is Jeanette Nishwat or something like that. And then Pam Bondi for Attorney General is a downgrade from Matt Gaetz. I know a lot of people tell me on the Facebook page they listen to like Greg Gutfeld and Mark Levin, and they think Pam Bondi's awesome, and it's just like totally a 5-dimensional chess plan or whatever. It's not the case. She's a downgrade, and I'm going to show you why with proof of things you're not going to see anywhere else. So thanks for being here. Give me a thumbs up for the video, for the algorithm, and a thumbs up in the chat if it sounds good. Show starts now. I'm going to have to focus, not looking at comments today. God bless you guys. Here we go.
It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. Yeah.
What's going on, Facebook? What's going on, YouTube? Like I said, I got to focus today. I got a lot to go through, and I don't want to waste your time. So let's get into a lot of stuff about Trump's Surgeon General. And then once again, for those who are looking for positive content, optimism, and they're going to say, well, it's not all bad. I'm not saying it's all bad. I'm not saying that there's nothing to look forward to. I'm not saying that this is the end of Trump's world or the administration. But our job as either voters or supporters or citizens or Americans is to compliment the good things, but then push back journalistically against the bad things. And I would argue that people not pushing back journalistically against Trump is what led to positions like this person. And if we all speak our mind and we all make it so uncool to do this type of stuff, hopefully we'll see some better people in. So this is the first clip outside of what she said about mask mandates and vaccines and the booster shots. All interesting. We'll get to it later. This clip should disqualify her. She is pro-censorship, and she was complimenting and giving a thumbs up to Mark Zuckerberg and saying that she was glad that Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook was censoring millions of Americans during the pandemic. So this clip alone is the worst clip, in my opinion, and it should be disqualifying for anybody that claims to be conservative or fighting against the tyranny that we dealt with in 2020, 2021, 2022, like the liberal social media companies who are censoring, anybody going against the pharmaceutical industry or the government.
First of all, vaccines save lives, and I am so excited, and I thank and I commend Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg for taking action, because this affects everyone. This affects our children. It affects adults.
I'm going to play that clip again because it's so annoying. I want to ingrain it in people's heads because this lady is just so gross to me. But I don't watch television. I read a report recently that a lot of people under 30, like they're watching less television than ever, but over 50 people watch a lot of television. And Fox News, like people are like, I don't trust Fox News, but I trust Mark Levin. I don't trust Fox News, but I trust, Greg Gutfeld. I'm sure he's funny and it's a great show, but this is why Republicans in red states keep electing the swamp. This is why they think Pam Bondi's based and their best friend. It's because they're watching programming. Like this was not CNN. This was not MSNBC. And I have no idea what's going on Fox News because I can't possibly spend any less time on it. But I would say this, Tucker Carlson was being pretty honest and pretty awesome on television. they got rid of them. So anybody at that television station, I'm not saying you have to hate them or anything, or everything they say is wrong, because it's not, but it's like Tucker Carlson was actually providing value and trying to break you out of the Fox News programming and brainwash that they've been, putting in people's minds, and they kicked them off of television. So anybody that's still there is probably there for a reason, because they're not as big of a threat as Tucker was to breaking your programming. But once again, let's look at this Fox News clip. I can't believe they're pushing pro-censorship stuff on Fox News. Actually, I can't believe it, but let's look.
First of all, vaccines save lives, and I am so excited, and I thank and I commend Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg for taking action, because this affects everyone. This affects our children. It affects adults.
I'm so happy for Mark Zuckerberg for taking action. He's like taking action. It's like this lady's got, I don't know if she does or doesn't have plastic in her face. That's not for me to decide. And of course, that's totally mean to even speculate on. But it's like she talks as if she has so much plastic in her face that her face like doesn't move properly. It's like, I'm taking Mark Zuckerberg. I'm the Surgeon General now. Like, oh my gosh, censorship's like so cool. It's so cool. Like when millions of Americans lose their job and then they can't even have a criticism against the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, oh my God, I'm on Fox News. Oh my gosh, I can't.
First of all, vaccines save lives, and I am so excited, and I thank and I commend Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg for taking action, because this affects everyone. This affects our children. It affects adults.
Disqualified. Any honest administration would not want a pro-censorship person in their administration. And I don't want to talk about this too much because I have more reporting to do, but people like this, I try not to get emotional and I try not to take anything personal. Like I just try to do my job. But people like this, I do take it personally, because it's people like that that didn't care that I almost lost my livelihood. It's people like that that don't care that I lost tens of thousands of dollars, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars, while the government was shutting down society. And I'm trying to do my job, and they're taking down videos that aren't even wrong. They're 100% correct, but it's because of people like her that were like, yeah, Mark Zuckerberg, take down all the criticism of Big Pharma, and they were also taking down anybody that was criticizing lockdown. So it's like now we're relegated to slaves of society who aren't even allowed to leave our house or go to a grocery store without a face mask on. That's bad enough, right? What's even worse is then they're trying to censor and take away money and income and jobs from anybody speaking out against it. And this lady was applauding it. Not only is she disqualified, I would consider her a demon who talks as if there's so much plastic in her face that her lips don't move properly. She's so disgusting to me. Not only is she so annoying, but she should not be the Surgeon General under Donald Trump. There's other good picks. I want to talk about it. I don't want to be all pessimistic, but we got to get into the full scope of who this lady is. She pushed the third booster shot. She said that 18-year-olds could get the third booster shot, especially if they're fat or have asthma. Okay, I'm just reporting it. She was pro-mask mandate, and she was pushing psychotic Fauci-level mask rules of like, if you test negative for 7 days and put on a mask, then you can go back to work. And like, here's all the compilations of the stupid stuff she said, including her pro-mask mandate stuff on television.
A booster shot had significantly more improvement, more protection, more antibodies than those who did not have that third dose. But over the age of 18, you can definitely get one as well, especially if you have asthma, diabetes, obesity.
So when we are dealing with these types of situations, we need to take action. And that starts with protecting everyone, because everyone is capable of spreading this virus from one person to another.
I know that the CDC has updated its guidelines. If you've been exposed to someone who tested positive for coronavirus and you are symptom-free after 10 days, then you are cleared to go back to work. If you are symptom-free for 7 days with a negative COVID test, then you're also free to go back to work. But the baseline remains that you should still monitor your symptoms, wear your mask, and practice social distancing.
Like, oh my God, I'm a doctor. Like, oh my God, it's hard for me to move my face. But, oh my God, it's like, I'm convinced at this point that Trump just likes hot women, and he likes to appoint hot women to positions because it's like, it's a pretty lady. But outside of that, it's disgraceful. Pro censorship, third boosters on 18-year-olds, pro mask mandate, and playing along to the Fauci level psychotic rules that were being pushed. One of the worst people who has me blocked on Twitter, and that's okay. That's his right. You know, everybody can block who they want, but his name is Peter Hotez. He called himself a vaccine expert, even though Joe Rogan exposed that he doesn't even take care of himself. Of course, he wants to police the health and pharmaceuticals of everybody else, but he can't even put a bag of potato chips down. Peter Hotez, one of the worst people during COVID, on the level of Fauci. He said, a good appointment, happy about this. I got to know Dr. Janet during the pandemic, exchanging information. She is very smart, thoughtful, interested in learning, and a compassionate doctor, and a truly nice person. So he's super, super pumped. Like I said, I mean, this guy is on the level of Fauci. Like, he's a Fauci type character that didn't have the power of Anthony Fauci, but he was a mainstream media gremlin and goblin who came out to basically justify all of the psychotic things that they were doing to us. So if he's happy, you already know. If you want to call it the swamp, if you want to call it the deep state, if you want to call it big pharma, whatever you want to call it, she's all of those things. She sucks. Every shitty person is happy that she's there. Pro censorship, pro mask mandate. Oh my God, but she talks like this. So, oh my gosh, I'm a doctor. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, I'm the Surgeon General. Oh my gosh, I can't believe Trump appointed me. This is so excited that I'm trying to move my face, but it doesn't seem to be moving properly. Oh my gosh. I mean, I can't believe I got this position. I really deserve it because I pushed censorship on American citizens during the pandemic. Like, oh my God. Speaking of Peter the Goblin Hotez, here's Joe Rogan finding it just crazy that with somebody pushing such extreme rules at others, that Peter the Goblin Hotez just can't put potato chips down and take care of himself. Obvious basic self-awareness and science that has been around for thousands of years called diet and exercise.
Do you take care of your immune system in other ways? Do you take probiotics? Are you cautious about your diet?
I'm not as cautious about my diet as I should be. I'm a junk foodaholic, actually.
I just push health policies on everybody else, but for myself, I'm a junk foodaholic. I mean, I know science is diet and exercise as well, but I look like a little jack-o'-lantern mixed with a goblin, mixed with a little tick that you'd find on a tree in, the Pacific Northwest. But I mean, I don't really do all that stuff. I more just push pharmaceuticals on the masses. But let's talk a little bit more, Joe Rogan.
Well, that seems like a terrible thing for your health.
It is a terrible thing for my health and something my wife is working on.
But that seems ridiculous for someone who works with health.
Yeah.
What's going on with you, man?
Sometimes, man, I just don't get it right.
How often?
What?
How often?
How often do I steal a bag of chips or something like that?
How often do you eat garbage?
I mean, I don't always get it right, but I mean, I pretend like I get it right on social media because even though I can't even take care of myself or do the basic obvious science of diet, I think that everybody should follow my rules, even though I just admitted that I'm not always right, but I'll pretend like I am on Twitter. Shut up, Goblin. But he's happy, remember. He's thrilled that Janet, I can't move my face, Jezebel Johnson or whatever her name. I'm just kidding. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. So I take that back. I apologize. That was rude. The Surgeon General, the holy Surgeon General who was pushing censorship on American citizens during the pandemic. Anyway, I don't even know where I was going with that. I want to get to this point because I really want to say that I was completely underwhelmed with the journalism against Donald Trump from Republicans. Like everybody that got to interview him that was a conservative was like, Trump, what would it be like to be your toilet paper? I mean, I'd love to be your toilet paper for a day, Trump. I'm being sarcastic, but at the same time, it was like there was no real questions. The only person who pushed back even a little bit was Megyn Kelly. She did a good journalistic interview. Candace Owens asked a few good questions. And everybody else basically just let him get away with. He just kept saying my vaccine saved hundreds of millions of lives. Nobody believes that. Fauci doesn't believe that. Bill Gates doesn't believe that. The most pro-vaccine people, they don't even make up numbers like that. But Donald Trump just kept saying it and nobody pushed back. So not only do we get a Surgeon General named Jeanette, can't move her face, whatever, Junior Johnson or whatever last name is, Schweinwand. I don't even know. Look her up. Surgeon General. But Trump is still saying that Operation Warp Speed saved hundreds of millions of lives. And he wrote that in his letter to why he picked a Surgeon General. Let's take a look. So in the letter saying he picked Dr. Nishawat, Dr. I can't move my face when I'm with you, but I love censorship, I can't move my face when I try to talk, but I'm like a doctor. I'm like a doctor. That's the new Weekend remix. You heard it here first, folks. Trump said in this, he said, Donald Trump's historic Operation Warp Speed that saved hundreds of millions of lives. In my opinion, if there was no lockdown, if there was no vaccine rollout, if there was no, therapeutics and all this stuff, and everybody just got to go about their business and didn't get fear-mongered and didn't get locked down and didn't get fat and didn't get, so many people died from other things like, I would say alcohol overdose. A lot of people that were former drug addicts slipped back into drugs because they got their job taken away from them. You talk about those excess deaths, et cetera. If you would have never locked down and Trump would have never rushed a vaccine, I don't think he saved 100 million lives. I don't think he saved 10 million lives. I don't think he saved 5 million lives. I would say, in my unprofessional opinion, they hurt more people than they helped. I don't think they did much of anything. Did some people get helped by therapeutics? Yeah, of course. But how many excess deaths did they not talk about that died from alcohol, obesity? They made the entire country less physically healthy, less mentally healthy, less psychologically healthy, abused them. The economic damage it did to people, domestic abuse was up. I mean, I could add up all the things that got worse, but don't worry, people that look like ticks on a tree that, could be a jack-o'-lantern mixed with a goblin, they'll tell you what to do with their, with your pharmaceutical intakes, but they just can't put down potato chips. Anyway, I just want to say this before I move on to the next thing. I really think that Republicans need to do better journalism, because I think if people did confront Trump on these things and actually push back and actually ask tough questions, I don't think he would still be bragging about it or think it's cool, but he thinks it's cool because he always kind of gets away with it because nobody actually pushes back against the ridiculous things he says about Operation Warp Speed. Some people have brainwashed themselves into thinking that it was this super secret plan to save the world from a 10-year lockdown. But that is just a lie repeated 1,000 times that people say that like him, but they don't even really think about it because it doesn't make sense. And you can look when they rolled the vaccine out, blue states didn't even open. It was the competition between Florida and Texas that made them lose $1 trillion that made them open. It wasn't the vaccine. The vaccine was a head fake. That's like saying the only way you can get your freedom back is if you're forced masked for 2 years, and then you'll get it back and save you from a 10-year forced masking. It's all in people's heads that just make stuff up to justify tyranny and pharmaceutical sellout, which was what Trump did. But anyway, I think she's a horrible pick. And I just think the pro-censorship thing is the icing on the cake. Now, after all of my hilarious jokes that I made about those two and the funny moments we had here, let me get into some positives, because actually, before I do, let me just show you a tweet from the FDA director, and then we'll get into the positives. This guy's Marty Makary. He said in 2023, I generally recommended the vaccine to pregnant women who have never had COVID before. By the way, not 2 doses together, 3 to 4 weeks apart, but this is a terrible way to do medical science and a good way to lose public trust. So he was saying here that in 2023, he was telling pregnant women that have never had COVID before to get the COVID vaccine. But don't worry, he spaced it apart because he's just so much more based in red pill than the other scientists. So this guy, Marty, he did some good work. He's definitely better than who's probably there now. He's definitely better than who Trump picked last time. Like, he does seem to be like an on the fence type of guy who pushed back against lockdowns a little. But this is the medical community that I don't want to rant too much about now. It's like a bunch of people that look like little gremlins and stuff that don't even take care of themselves. They read every study. They're like, well, Pfizer did a study with 100 people, so that must mean this happened. And it's like, they don't even use basic common sense. I read the book, How to Lie with Statistics, and my reporting was more accurate than all of them combined. Why? Am I some sort of super genius? Call me that, but stroke my ego if you want. But no, not really. That's not why I did a good job. I just have 3rd grade math, and I'm not an idiot with a massive ego that thinks that I know everything all the time. So it's like, at the beginning, I debunked the massive death rate that they said COVID had, because they said COVID has an 8.9.10% death rate or whatever. They tried to like boost it up as much as possible. And I did the math and I say, guys, nobody's getting tested. Who's getting tested right now? People at hospitals and athletes. Those are the only 2 groups that seem to be able to get a COVID test. Nobody else even has access to a test. So if only people at hospitals and a few athletes are taking COVID tests, of course the death rate's going to be high, because only the most sick people get to test for COVID. Once they sent that stupid thing that you shoved up your nose to everybody and millions of people tested, and they're testing asymptomatic people, the death rate went down. It's not that the death rate went down. It's just that the data shifted because they had incomplete data and they were making massive assumptions based on an incomplete data set. I'm not even that good at math. I'm good at other things. Math is not my strong point, but I would say I'm above average. I'm not like an idiot. or anything. That's third grade math, guys. That's not even algebra, geometry, or like trigonometry. It's third grade math. If you only give out certain tests to the really sick people, the death rate's going to look higher than if you send tests to everybody. It's going to go down based on the number of people and the number of people who died. But when the one part of the equation is low because you're not giving out tests, it's going to seem astroturfed. And I'm not blaming Marty Makary for this, but these people do not impress me. If you want to impress me, do a push-up. Take care of yourself. If you look like a goblin or like a gargoyle that people put on their porch around Halloween and you look shriveled up like a character from Futurama, you're not impressing me. Like, it's not impressive that you read a study that I could read and you believe everything that you read because this person did that. So Marty Makary, he's whatever to me. I think he's better than she is. I like him better, but I'm not that impressed with him either. It's like there are all these pseudo-intellectual people who actually don't even know science that well that just scream the word science, like Fauci. The Surgeon General is a disaster. She needs to be replaced, in my opinion. The FDA guy is an upgrade. I just criticized him a little bit, but I think that's a slight upgrade. The CDC guy seems like a massive upgrade, and RFK Jr. is an absolutely massive upgrade. So here's what I want to say before I move on to Pam Bondi, who people think is awesome. And I'm not saying she's not. She looks lovely. I'm sure she does a great job. I'm not trying to hate on her as a person. I'm just saying, in general, RFK at HHS is important. If he doesn't get confirmed, then a lot of what people wanted to do with Make America Healthy Again isn't going to matter as much as people wanted it to. And if the roles were reversed, if she was at HHS and RFK was a Surgeon General, I would be way more bummed out because a Surgeon General doesn't have as much power as HHS, not even close. She definitely has power, and I think she's unqualified, but like, it is still a great sign, just to be positive, that RFK is at the top of HHS. The CDC director is way better than the last one. The FDA guy, as much as I disagree with some of his little pseudoscience, John Hopkins stuff that he does, he's better than the other FDA director. So it's moving in the right direction, but it all relies on RFK being there. He's got to get confirmed, and I still think it's a great sign that he's above all these people. That's exciting to me. Even though I just told you what I told, I'm still excited about it because I thought RFK was going to get a low-level position. I didn't think Trump really had it in him to try to push him at HHS, but he did. And this is among all the reasons that I am annoyed by Trump sometimes. This is why I like Trump. He's not that idealistic, and he's doing RFK a favor who did a favor for him. And that's still a great sign. So that's my wrap-up on the Surgeon General. Pro-censorship, not that much different than Fauci, endorsed by the worst people in the science community. Not a fan, but FDA guy, I like him a little better. CDC guy, I like a lot better. RFK is one of the biggest upgrades in modern history. So still a lot to be excited about, despite all my awesome and totally hilarious impressions. I'm not trying to brag, but aren't I funnier than SNL when I make fun of like Peter Hotez and the plastic lady? It's like, I'm not even trying to act like I'm that funny, but SNL is so not funny that by default, I'm like funnier than them. So if that show fails, hit me up or something, because I'm available. Just kidding. Anyway, let me get into something with Pam Bondi, because a lot of people did their research and realized that she pushed red flag laws in Florida, just like Rick Scott did. They were working in cahoots with Trump. After the Parkland shooting, they used that tragedy and really sad moment as an emotional heartstring pull to try to manipulate the Second Amendment, like Democrats and Republicans always do. And Rick Scott actually wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post saying why he supports red flag laws, while Pam Bondi and Donald Trump were pushing red flag laws. I don't have the whole clip, but they were trying to say certain mentally ill people should get the guns taken away and then have due process after. And then, to be honest, in that clip, like I said, I don't have it, but I'll give you a summary. You could look on Twitter and probably find it if you look hard enough. Trump was talking about how video games are violent and movies are violent, and he thinks that might play a role. This might be an unpopular opinion, but I actually believe that too. I personally think violent video, and I know this is not popular, violent video games, I think, are disgusting. Violent movies are disgusting. They've normalized it in our society. Like, how cool is this? But I do think that it does play some sort of psychological role. And I'm very sensitive to what I try to intake. And I don't like violent video games, and I don't like violent movies. You can make fun of me if you want, but I find them disgusting and disturbing and weird, especially with how realistic stuff is now. And I kind of agree with Trump, but I'm not saying we need to pass legislation for it. It's just, I thought it was an interesting take from him. The red flag laws, I don't really trust this government, unfortunately, with that. So I'm not a fan of that. But I want to show you this about Pam Bondi, because this is the main thing. And I'm not trying to seem hateful, or they would say anti-Semitic. That's the word that they call everybody in order to keep making money and pushing speech laws in foreign countries. But in general, I told people that Matt Gaetz is one of the only, and I'm going to show you proof in a second. He's one of the only Republicans who was pushing back against the anti-Semitism speech laws. As a self-proclaimed Christian or Catholic, Matt Gaetz realized that the anti-Semitism hate speech laws actually make part of the Bible hate speech. So Christians, it shouldn't even matter, because the First Amendment's for everybody. It doesn't matter if you're Christian or not. But Christians need to wake up, because they're so brainwashed by Zionist pastors and Zionist media that they think that like it's awesome that Republicans are passing hate speech laws, or they don't even know about it, because Daily Wire, Turning Point USA, all Republican media, they barely ever talk about it. And when they do, they act like it's some new thing when it's already been passed like 100 times in America. So people got to wake up to this, because if we lose our First Amendment, we're screwed. But let me show you, once they took out Matt Gaetz and replaced him with Pam Bondi, I already knew what a lot of the angle was going to be. So let me show you. Here's two media organizations smearing Matt Gaetz as anti-Semitic. This is Jewish Insider and Times of Israel. Jewish Insider said Trump's pick Matt Gaetz with a checkered record on anti-Semitism for Attorney General. Times of Israel said Trump's AG pick called the ADL racist, invited a Holocaust denier to the State of the Union. So they were smearing Matt Gaetz viciously. They did not want him to be confirmed. And these are not the only two papers, but I need two to just show you, and then you could go see how many other papers do that. They were like, he's anti-Semitic, get him out of there, because he thinks that it's the anti-Semitism bill. Hold on real quick, because I'm going to show you this again. Hold on. If you look at the Times of Israel article under where it says Trump's AG pick called the ADL racist, it says Jewish groups rushed to denounce Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, who opposed an anti-Semitism bill because it designated the claim that Jews killed Jesus as anti-Semitic. Do you understand what's going on here? All these media organizations, they want to pass anti-Semitism speech laws. And anytime someone says, like, why are you making part of the Bible illegal? They start smearing you as an anti-Semite and, a rate, whatever, all these names. So that's what they were doing. Once Pam Bondi got picked, they started celebrating. They have almost identical headlines. The Jewish Insider said, Trump's new AG nominee, Pam Bondi, called for crackdowns on pro-Hamas protesters. And then Times of Israel, like I said, almost identical. It says Trump's AG nominee has called for the FBI to question pro-Hamas campus protesters. Do you notice it says protester, not rioter, not somebody breaking the law? It says protest, which is part of your right in America. Listen, I'm not a protester for that cause. It's not my thing. But at the end of the day, the First Amendment is the First Amendment. There's no such thing as hate speech. Hate speech is what they hate, which is this list of laws, which includes biblical verses that they are saying is anti-Semitic. And these sellout Republicans are passing them in Florida. And Pam Bondi seems to have no issue with it. So do you notice what's going on with Matt Gaetz? We have only a very few hand-picked amount of people in Congress and the Senate that stand with the First Amendment over the Jewish lobby or the Israel lobby that you can't even say exists, because they'll just call you anti-Semitic. And, the actual First Amendment of the Constitution. Matt Gaetz was one of the few people who said, hey, I stand with the First Amendment over the lobbyists. I stand with the First Amendment over the idea that the Bible is anti-Semitic or talking about the Bible is anti-Semitic. They smeared him as an anti-Semite and replaced him with somebody that says they're going to crack down on college protests. And I know that Fox News has brainwashed you and Daily Wire has brainwashed you into thinking that it's awesome that they're cracking down on protests. But if you lose the First Amendment for the people you don't like, then you lose it yourself. And the thing is, if protesters get violent, that's already against the law. You can crack down on a riot if it's a riot. If they do something illegal, it's already illegal. You don't need to pass a law to make a protest deemed hate speech. You don't need to pass a law to make the Bible deemed hate speech. And I already knew once they got rid of Matt Gaetz, I'm thinking to myself, that's why they're getting rid of them. Not what you're hearing on Greg Gutfeld, not what you're hearing on Living Report, not what you're hearing on Daily Wire. Charlie Kirk will talk about it once a year and then he'll run into hiding again and suck up donor money. You're not going to hear this anywhere because everybody's playing the same game. They don't want to get Matt Gaetz. They don't want to get Candace Owens. So they just act like it's not happening. But it is. They're trying to infringe on the First Amendment. Matt Gaetz is for the First Amendment. They knew he was for the First Amendment. They smeared him. They got rid of him. They replaced him with somebody who's going to crack down on the First Amendment. And that these organizations that were calling Matt Gaetz are anti-Semitic, now they're jumping with joy. They're like, we got rid of the guy who believes in the Constitution. We got rid of the guy who noticed that the speech laws are, making part of the Bible anti-Semitic. We got rid of him. And we got a lady who's going to push our speech laws even further and call the FBI to push the speech laws. She's not based. She's not better. She's not an improvement. It's not 5-dimensional chess plan. It's the swamp and the lobbyists swallowing up Trump's organization or administration, just like they did last time. They weeded out all the loyalists that they couldn't control. They filled up the swamp. And then we ended up in a pharmaceutical lockdown and Trump running around saying the vaccine saved 100 million lives. So I'm just saying there's a lot of things to be excited about, a lot of things to be skeptical about. But if you're a voter, if you're a Trump supporter, if you're a citizen, if you're an American, it's not the time to argue over petty stuff that doesn't matter. It's not the time to say, well, you voted or you didn't vote. It's a waste of time. It's divide and conquer. Everybody needs to let the Republican Party know, we see what you're doing and you have to stand by the First Amendment. It doesn't help a foreign country or group of people to infringe on the First Amendment. That's left-wing thinking. It's like, oh, because racism exists, we have to pass racism speech laws in order for people to say that the crime rate's not high or they can't talk about George Floyd. I'm sorry, but the First Amendment's the First Amendment. You don't use different tragedies in order to take it away the same way they tried to, do that with the red flag laws. This is always how it works. So, I don't know what people are watching, but I also do. It's like Daily Wire's not going to tell you this. Turning Point and Charlie Kirk are not going to tell you this. Steve Bannon's War Room probably isn't going to talk about this. They don't cover this stuff. It's like this giant cover up, essentially, where nobody talks about it. Like as if these anti-Semitism, that law that he said makes part of the Bible anti-Semitic, Charlie Kirk and Matt Walsh covered it for the first time this year, right? And everybody goes, look, they're covering it. But they acted like it was just something that Democrats were doing and some rhinos. They've been passed into over 30 states. Most Republican states have already passed them into the official definition of anti-Semitism. Governor Kemp has passed it. Ron DeSantis has passed it. Sarah Huckabee Sanders has passed it. Tennessee has passed it. You look at all these states. Donald Trump passed it through an executive order for college campus, and Ron DeSantis passed it. And then the guy, Randy Fine, who's pushing it into Ron DeSantis, is now Trump's telling him to run for a Congress seat. And nobody realizes, they're like, oh man, that would be crazy if a speech law passed. They've already passed in 30 states. And this is what they do. If anybody like Thomas Massie or Matt Gaetz, they're one of the only two people, they stand up and say, the First Amendment's so important. It doesn't matter how pro-Israel you are. It doesn't matter how much foreign aid you give them or whatever. If you notice that the IHRA, which are not even American anti-Semitism speech laws, they're global anti-Semitism speech laws that have been passed into dozens of countries and cities around the world, the same exact definition that says that if you talk about certain biblical discussion, you're an anti-Semite. Now the Bible's anti-Semitic. It's Christian Republicans selling their own people out and their own constitution out for lobbyists, but people that are evangelicals are like brainwashed by fake pastors. They think it's awesome to lose their First Amendment in America for Jesus, even though it's not Christian at all. And it's not even for Christ. It's literally for a country that rejects him, but whatever. In general, there's only a few. You think it's a coincidence that Matt Gaetz, who doesn't take lobbying money, who doesn't play that game, he's going to be the top cop in the land. He's going to side with the First Amendment when it comes to it. They smear him. They make him look crazy. They take him out. Now he's relegated to doing cameos. He's like, hey, guys, I'm on Cameo. What a sad sight that is. The dude was a House member. He dropped out of the House. Now he's unemployed on Cameo. Poor guy. But anyway, you think it's a coincidence that they got rid of him? And all you go look at all the organizations that were smearing him as anti-Semitic. There's probably 10 of them. All of them are going to be celebrating Pam Bondi for the reason that I told you 2 weeks ago before they kicked him out. If you want to be ahead of the curve, you have to understand this dynamic. It's not hateful. It's not anti-Semitic. It's literally the reality of how the Republican Party works. And until people figure this out, it's just going to be a cycle on loop. I'm very optimistic. I'm very grateful for a lot of things. I think some things are moving in the right direction, but it's a matter of how many people can figure this out. I looked at a poll recently and it said that like the most popular pick that Trump has in his cabinet is Marco Rubio. Of course, I don't believe every poll, but it's like you go onto X and you're like, people are awake, or you're in like Trump groups and you're like, oh, they get who the rhinos are. Most of the country still doesn't. That's why they keep electing them to the Senate. Rand Paul's one of the only good senators. Maybe there's a few other ones. The rest of them kind of suck. So it's like people aren't as awake as some people might think they are because they're on social media. Yeah, they like Trump and they're conservative, but they don't understand this stuff. So it's like Charlie Brown with the football every 4 years because we can never get anything done because the rhinos swallow up the party and they're convinced that Trump has some super secret plan where he's really just caving, getting rid of people who stand with the Constitution, replacing them with red flag law people who are going to crack down on protests. Like that's the media smearing Matt Gaetz as hateful is celebrating that the new one is going to crack down on protests for their cause. It's pretty obvious what's going on. I'm not going to freak out about it because at the end of the day, it's like it's a numbers game. You know, I know a lot of people want to rush and they want to get mad at everybody all the time, etc. There's only so much you could really do because until people figure out that, it's never going to change. And Fox News barely talks about it. Here's what Fox News does. They won't tell you what I just told you, which is Republicans are selling out your First Amendment under the guise of anti-Semitism in order to pass a law that says if you read certain Bible verses, it is deemed anti-Semitic. And if you notice that, they'll call you anti-Semitic, and all these organizations will call you anti-Semitic. But they'll put this on Fox News.
First of all, vaccines save lives, and I am so excited, and I thank and I commend Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg for taking action because this affects everyone. This affects our children. It affects adults.
But I like Mark Levin report anomaly. I listen to Greg Gutfeld. You don't understand. No, boomer, you don't understand. Just kidding. Not just boomers, but I'm just saying, it's like, you don't understand. Mark Levin told me this or that. Imagine trusting Mark Levin. Imagine trusting Greg Gutfeld. That's like trusting the court jester. It's like honk, honk, honk. Yeah, he gets to honk, honk, honk because he's not Tucker Carlson. If he did any sort of meaningful reporting that actually changed the course of, the consciousness, they'd kick him out like they kicked out Tucker Carlson or everybody else that isn't allowed to be there. So, I know that people are comfortable with television and honk, 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 Gutfeld and Mark Levin, but they're not going to tell you this. They're keeping you under a spell, being like, look over here, folks. No, look at what I just said, because that's the reality of what's really going on in Trump's administration. And everybody on X notices it. It's like his administration, they all have something in common. And if they don't, they get kicked out and replaced with somebody who has that in common. They're trying to take away your First Amendment and make your Bible illegal. Wake up, Christians. And if you're not Christian, they're trying to take away your First Amendment too. Appreciate you guys. Let me know what you think. There's some other good picks. We can talk about the positives more. I'm going to keep this report short and concise, and I want to let you guys know if you're interested and you want to support. I got a bunch of these beanies made in America. The God Bless beanies are back for the winter. Check it out at dreamrare.com. Get yourself a Christmas gift if you'd like to support. And yes, sir, have a good one. Dreamrare.com is where you find that. Let me know in the comments what you think. Appreciate you.
Hey, what's going on, my friends? Just a few ways to stay in touch and support if you'd like to. The first way is dreamrare.com. We have blue beanies, black beanies, pink hats, other colored hats, freedom versus tyranny shirts, stay blessed long sleeve, God is great long sleeve, and lots of more cool items coming soon. Dreamrare.com. Check out the shop to support everything.